The pup wasn't breathing. Dominic's beast tore through the forest, rain lashing, thunder drowning out everything except the silence in his jaws. The tiny body, gray, cold, limp, no heartbeat, no chest movement, nothing. His brother's son, the last piece of Callum, dying between his teeth. He'd pulled him from the river 30 seconds ago, maybe 40. How long could a newborn go without oxygen? 2 minutes, 3. He didn't know where he was running, just running. Because stopping meant admitting the pup was gone. Then, through the storm, a light, small, flickering, a clinic. He remembered, the healer, the exo, the one they said turned no one away. His last chance, he crashed through her door, praying to gods he'd stop believing in, that she could do what he couldn't, bring the dead back to life. The storm hit at 11:47 p.m. Alessia knew because she'd been watching the clock, counting down the minutes until she could justify going to bed, until she could stop pretending she wasn't listening for the phone that never rang. 5 years in exile, 5 years of silence. The rain came first, soft, almost apologetic. Then the wind picked up and the whole clinic started to groan like something dying. She was in the supply room when it happened, reorganizing bandages she'd already organized twice that week, because that's what you did when you lived alone at the edge of nowhere. You found tasks, you filled hours, you pretended the loneliness wasn't crushing you from the inside out. The crash came without warning, wood splintering, metal screaming, the sound of something massive forcing its way through a door that was never meant to hold against monsters. Alicia's first thought was rogues. Her second thought was run. Her third thought, the one that actually mattered, was the emergency kits in the main room. She grabbed the nearest weapon, a scalpel, laughable, but her hands were already moving. Down the hall, past the examination rooms, toward the sound of something breathing. Heavy, wet, wrong. The front door hung off one hinge, just hanging there, splintered down the middle like something had punched through it with the force of a wrecking ball, and standing in the threshold, blocking out the storm, blocking out everything. The beast, black as midnight, massive, shoulders wide enough to fill the doorway, fur matted with rain and something darker. Blood, fresh blood mixing with the water pooling on her linoleum floor. Its eyes hit her first. Gold, burning gold. Not animal, not completely. There was intelligence there, desperation, terror, and between its jaws, held with a gentleness that seemed impossible for something so monstrous. A bundle, gray, limp, small, not breathing. Alessia's medical training kicked in before her fear could catch up. Put him on the table. Her voice cut through the storm. Clean, sharp, no room for argument. The beast didn't move. Now, if you want him to live, you do exactly what I say. For a moment, one eternal held breath moment, she thought it would attack. Thought those jaws would snap shut. Thought she'd die right there in her own clinic, with a scalpel she'd never get the chance to use. But the beast moved, slowly, carefully, like it was carrying the most precious thing in the world. It padded forward, claws clicking against the tiles, each step leaving crimson prints. The sound echoed. Drumbeat, death march, pick your metaphor, both fit. Alessia backed up just enough to give it room. Not running, never running, because running made you prey. And she'd stopped being prey the day she chose exile over obedience. The beast lowered its massive head, opened jaws that could snap a grown man in half, and deposited the bundle onto the cold metal examination table with a care that broke something in Alicia's chest. Then it stepped back, released a low, rattling whine. The sound vibrated in her ribs, in her bones, in the hollow space where her heart used to feel safe. Alessia moved. The pup, because that's what it was, a pup, a baby, was barely the size of a loaf of bread, covered in fine silvery down plastered to its skin with mud, with blood, with the residue of something Alessia didn't want to think about. Eyes tightly shut, tongue blue-gray, hanging from the side of its tiny mouth. No rise and fall of the chest. No heartbeat fluttering beneath those fragile ribs. Dead, or close enough that the difference didn't matter. Time is tissue. She said it out loud, to herself, to the beast pacing behind her. to the universe that kept testing her oath. Her hands moved on autopilot, stripping off her cardigan, grabbing the pediatric oxygen mask, the bulb syringe, positioning herself at the head of the table where the light was brightest. Airway first, always the airway. She tilted the pup's head back, gently, so gently, inserted the tip of the syringe into the tiny snout, squeezed. The suction pulled out a horrific mixture. Amniotic fluid, mud, blood. The kind of fluid that meant this pup had been drowning before it ever took its first breath. She repeated the process in the mouth, again, again, her hands steady even though her heart was trying to punch through her sternum. Behind her, the beast paced, thud, thud, thud. Heavy footfalls, ragged, wet breathing. The air in the room thick with something Alessia recognized. Dominant alpha energy, the kind that demanded obedience, that crushed weaker wolves under the weight of pure presence. It pressed against her, suffocating, screaming at her to submit, to bow, to acknowledge the power in the room. She ignored it. Clear, tossed the syringe into the sink, pressed 2 fingers against the pup's chest, right over where the tiny heart should be beating. Nothing, not a flutter, not a whisper. Start the clock. She said it to no one, to everyone, to herself because saying it made it real, made it a fight she could win, positioned her index and middle fingers on the center of the sternum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rapid compressions, the fragile cartilage giving way under her touch. Too soft, too breakable. This is why you never wanted to do infant CPR. This is why every medical professional had nightmares about this exact scenario. Pause. Clamped mouth over the tiny snout. 1 short, controlled puff. The chest rose, fell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another breath. The wolf behind her made a sound, half growl, half sabal, entirely too human. Quiet, Alessia snapped it without breaking rhythm. Your panic isn't helping him. Pull back your aura. You're smothering the room. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. Because you didn't talk to an alpha like that. You definitely didn't order one around in its own presence. That was how you died, fast and messy. But the crushing weight of pine and ozone that had been choking the air suddenly pulled back, coiled into a tight knot in the corner. The beast was listening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breath. Sweat beaded on Alessia's forehead, slid down her temple. She didn't wipe it away. 2 minutes. 2 minutes without oxygen was an eternity for a newborn. For a human baby, you started seeing brain damage. For a shifter pup, the window was slightly bigger. Slightly. Not enough to make her feel better about the blue tint spreading across those tiny gums. Come on, little one. Her voice tight, controlled, barely. You survived the cold. You survived whatever hell you came from. You don't get to quit on this table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, breath, nothing. The room tombed silent except for the wall clock. Ticking, ticking, ticking. And the storm, still raging outside, still trying to tear the world apart. Alessia's arms ached. The clinical detachment she'd built up over 5 years of solo practice. Over 1,000 patients. Over every rogue and outcast and dying wolf who'd stumbled through her door. It frayed, started letting in the grief. The crushing certainty that she was about to lose this one. No. She pushed it back, locked it down, shoved it into the box where she kept all the feelings that would destroy her if she let them out. Grabbed the emergency kit, hands shaking now, just slightly. Epinephrine, the vial smaller than her thumb, snapped the top off, drew up the smallest dose she'd ever calculated. 0.02 milliliters. Enough to shock a system, not enough to stop a heart that was already stopped. Please. She didn't say it out loud, didn't pray, hadn't prayed in years. But she thought it as she slid the microscopic needle into the muscle of the pup's hind leg. Please. Resume compressions. 1, 2, 3, a flutter. Faint, erratic, probably imagined. Alicia froze, held her breath, every cell in her body straining to feel that flutter again. The pup's chest jerked, a tiny, wet cough sputtered from its throat, expelled a drop of muddy water. Then, a breath, ragged, gasping, but a breath. The chest expanded on its own, again, again. And then, the most beautiful sound Alessia had ever heard in her entire life. A cry, high-pitched, reedy, furious. The pup was crying. Behind her, the sound of tearing flesh, snapping bone, the wet crunch of a body reshaping itself. Alessia didn't turn, not yet, grabbed a warm towel from the incubator, wrapped the squalling, squirming bundle, checked the oxygen saturation, heart rate, respiratory rate, all climbing, all fighting, still alive. Only when the numbers stabilized into something that wouldn't give her a heart attack did she turn around, where the beast had stood. A man now knelt, naked on the blood-stained tiles, heavily muscled chest heaving, dark hair plastered to his forehead, golden eyes still fading back to something almost human, almost hazel, staring up at her. He looked destroyed and terrifying, both at once. There are scrubs in the bottom drawer. Alessia's voice betrayed nothing, not the adrenaline, not the way her hands were shaking now that the crisis had passed, not the absolute insanity of having the Alpha King naked on her clinic floor, because she knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was, Dominic Vale. I suggest you put them on before you catch hypothermia. She kept her eyes fixed on the whimpering bundle in her arms, granting him privacy, because that felt important somehow. The wet slide of skin against tile, the rustle of fabric. Alessia moved to the incubator, placed Riven she'd already named him in her head. Riven, for the way he'd been torn from death, inside. Adjusted the temperature dial, checked the humidity. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting long shadows. Dominic's voice, low, raw, grinding, like he hadn't used human speech in days. None of the booming authority that commanded armies. None of the regal certainty that bent packs to his will. Just a man, standing on the edge of a precipice. Stable. Alessia turned to face him. He'd managed to pull on the oversized green scrub pants, left his chest bare, broad, scarred, every inch of him screaming power even in borrowed clothes, even exhausted and covered in mud and blood. He radiated something. Not just alpha presence, something deeper, the weight of a crown, the certainty of a man who'd been born to rule. You brought him back. Dominic took a step closer, stopped at the incubator, his large hand hovering over the clear plastic lid, afraid to touch. I felt his heart stop, a mile from here. I bought him time, Alessia corrected, moving to the sink, washing the blood from her hands, hot water stinging the raw patches on her skin, grounding her. He suffered severe hypothermia, fluid in the lungs. It was close. Alpha. Dominic, he said it sharply, gaze snapping to her. Tonight, just Dominic. Alessia grabbed a paper towel, dried her hands, slowly, buying herself time to process. The Alpha King was in her clinic, in her exile, in the life she'd built specifically to avoid people like him. All right, Dominic. She leaned against the counter, crossed her arms. Care to tell me why the Alpha King just kicked down my door in beast form, carrying a half-drowned newborn? She knew she was pushing, knew that as an unaffiliated wolf living on the fringe of his territory, she was supposed to bow her head, offer deference, show respect. But deference didn't save lives. And right now, she needed answers to keep this pup alive. Dominic's jaw tightened. He looked away, stared out the window at the pitch-black, rain-lashed forest. The muscle in his cheek twitched. There was an ambush at the northern border. His voice dropped, darker, dangerous. A rogue pack crossed the river. Rogues, Alessia frowned, stepped forward. Rogues don't have the coordination to breach the northern border. That's heavily fortified. They had help, Dominic said it flatly, eyes flashing, predatory. They knew the patrol routes, knew exactly where the carriage was. Carriage, Alessia's heart skipped. She looked back at the incubator, at the tiny pup, at the silvery down starting to dry and revealed distinct patterns. She walked over, lifted the towel. There, on the pup's left shoulder, a birthmark, shaped like a jagged crescent moon. Alessia sucked in a breath, the royal mark. Dominic, she whispered, eyes wide as she looked back at him. You don't have a mate. You don't have an heir. A beat, Whose pup is this? Dominic closed his eyes, leaned his head back against the wall, the exhaustion rolling off him in waves. My brother's son. Silence. The storm raged outside. Inside, everything still. Callum. Alessia shook her head, confusion warring with shock. Callum died 3 years ago, in the border wars. He didn't. Dominic opened his eyes, met hers, the pain there staggering. He was captured, held in secret by the northern witches. Dominic's hands curled into fists. They used him, bred him, like an animal. Alessia felt cold dread settle in her stomach. Tonight, Dominic continued, voice barely above a whisper. His mate, a captive she-wolf named Iris. She managed to escape with the newborn, ran for the citadel, didn't make it. He took a step toward Alessia, closing the distance until she had to look up to meet his eyes. The scent of rain, blood. Fierce protective fury rolled off him. The rogues caught her, killed her, threw the pup into the swollen river to drown. And Callum, still a prisoner. Dominic's voice broke on the words. I was on patrol when I caught the scent of royal blood. By the time I found them, Iris was dead. The rogues were... He stopped, swallowed hard. I tore through them, dove into the river, pulled him out. Another step, until Alessia could feel the heat of him, the barely controlled violence. I couldn't go to the citadel. Couldn't trust my royal physicians, my guards, because whoever helped those rogues breached the border. He leaned down slightly, face inches from hers. Is inside my court. Understanding crashed over Alessia. You brought a target to my door. I brought you a life to save, Dominic countered, eyes locked on hers. And you did. The storm outside seemed to intensify, rattling the thin glass. Inside, only the soft rhythmic hum of the incubator, the heavy breathing of two people standing too close. Alessia stood her ground, feeling the magnetic pull of his presence, the way it tried to make her bend, submit, acknowledge. She refused. Because 5 years ago, she'd made a choice. 5 years ago, she'd been 24, a rising star royal physician, with everything ahead of her. Until an old alpha king Dominic's father gave her an order, a rogue Omega, bleeding out at her clinic door. Let him die, rogue law. And Alessia, looking at that dying wolf, looked at her oath. Every life, not just the ones deemed worthy, every single life. She'd refused. Saved the Omega, been tried for treason, exiled. Dominic had been at the Eastern Border Wars, fighting, leading, becoming the king he was meant to be. By the time he returned, it was done. She was gone. And she'd built a new life, out here, alone, free, beholden to no one. He needs continuous monitoring. She turned her back on Dominic deliberately, checked Riven's vitals. His lungs have suffered trauma. Secondary drowning is a real risk over the next 48 hours, not to mention infection from whatever was in that river water. Then you'll monitor him, not a request, a decree, delivered with the absolute certainty of a man used to the world bending. I will, Alessia agreed, writing down vitals on a clipboard. Right here in my clinic, I have the equipment, the sterile environment, the isolation he requires. No, the word cracked through the air. Alessia paused, pen hovering, turned, slowly. No, you cannot stay here. Dominic stepped into the light, making the small room feel like a trap. The rogues who attacked the carriage. I killed most, but not all. He moved closer. If they tracked my scent, if they realize I pulled the pup from the river, they will come here. His eyes burned into hers. This building is made of wood and glass. It offers no protection. It has iron-warded locks, Alessia countered, chin tilting up. A reinforced basement. I've handled rogue attacks before. Not an organized hit squad paid by a traitor in my court, Dominic growled, stepping so close she could feel the heat radiating from his chest. I will not risk my nephew's life, and I will not risk yours. The last part, said quieter, but with more weight. You are packing your medical supplies right now. You are coming back to the royal estate with me. Alessia's heart slammed against her ribs. The royal estate. The words tasted like ash, like betrayal, like every reason she'd run 5 years ago. I can't. Her voice dropped. Tight with panic, she fought to conceal. You said it yourself. You don't know who the traitor is. Taking him into the heart of the Citadel is walking him straight into the snake pit. I am the king. Dominic said it quietly, but his aura flared, sudden, suffocating, forcing Alessia to take half a step back. Within the walls of my estate, I can lock down entire wings. I have personal guards sworn to me by blood oath. He leaned down. Out here, you are sitting ducks. His face inches from hers again. You are coming with me. Do not make me issue an alpha command. The threat hung there, heavy, violent, because as an unaffiliated wolf, Alessia was technically bound by his command if he chose to force it. It would strip her of free will, turn her into a puppet, a sensation she knew, feared more than death. She looked into his eyes, searching the gold depths, beneath the anger, the dominance, the barely leashed power. She saw it, raw, bleeding desperation. An uncle, terrified of losing the last piece of his brother. Her gaze shifted to the incubator. Riven shifted in his sleep. Tiny sigh escaping his lips, completely defenseless. A pawn in a game he hadn't even opened his eyes to see yet. Alicia took a slow breath, forced her trauma back down, into the dark corners where she kept everything that would break her. If I go with you, her voice remarkably steady despite the tremor in her hands. I go as the boy's physician, not as your subject, not as a member of your pack. Dominic's expression remained stone, but the crushing weight of his aura retreated, slightly. Agreed. And I have full authority over his medical care. Alessia pressed, pointing a finger at his chest, stopping just short of touching. If I say a room is off limits to everyone, including you, you respect it. A beat. If you want him to live, you do not interfere with my work. My word on his health is absolute law. She held his gaze. Do we have an understanding? Dominic looked at her, this small, fierce woman, half his size, wearing a blood-stained shirt, entirely lacking the physical strength to challenge him. But her spirit, iron, unbreakable. Something flickered in his chest, respect, unbidden, unwanted, undeniable. We have an understanding. He turned toward the door. Gather what you need. My SUV is hidden a quarter-mile down the logging road. We leave in 10 minutes. The drive was a masterclass in suffocating silence. Dominic drove the black armored SUV with white-knuckled intensity, tearing through winding, rain-slicked logging roads like hell itself was chasing them. Maybe it was, in the passenger seat. Alicia kept one hand on the portable transport incubator, strapped tightly between them. Inside, Riven slept, fragile, medicated. Every jolt sent anxiety spiking through Alicia's chest. She kept her eyes fixed on the digital readouts, watching the rhythmic green spikes of his heart rate, willing them to stay steady. We're crossing the inner perimeter. Dominic's voice broke the hour-long silence, gravelly, still holding rough edges of his wolf. Security will want to inspect the vehicle. Keep the boy covered. Alessia didn't argue, draped a thick, dark blanket over the clear plastic, obscuring the royal birthmark, the silver down, making Riven invisible. A moment later, the dense tree line broke, revealing the towering, imposing silhouette of the pack house against the stormy sky. It wasn't just an estate, it was a fortress. Steel, dark stone, reinforced glass, practically humming with the latent energy of hundreds of wolves. For Alicia, the sight felt like a physical blow. 5 years ago, she'd walked out of those heavy iron gates with nothing but the clothes on her back. Her reputation shredded, her future destroyed. The metallic taste of old adrenaline flooded her mouth. She swallowed it down. Focus on the patient. Nothing else matters. The SUV rolled to a halt before a massive steel barricade. 3 heavily armed guards stepped out of the rain, flashlights cutting through darkness. The lead guard, tall, broad-shouldered, scarred chin, approached the driver's side. Dominic rolled the window down. Just a fraction. The scent of ozone and dominant alpha instantly flooded out. Hitting the guards like a wall, the lead guard immediately bared his neck, stepped back. Alpha, he stammered, eyes darting to the shadowed interior. We didn't expect you back until dawn. The perimeter alarm was tripped by my passage. Dominic interrupted smoothly, tone brooking zero inquiry. Open the gates, Silas. Silas. So that was his name. The guard hesitated, brief, barely perceptible, but Alessia caught it. The flicker of curiosity as he looked past Dominic, toward her, toward the bulky blanket-covered shape beside her. Of course, Alpha, but protocol dictates a visual sweep of the interior for any returning. A low, vibrating growl ripped from Dominic's chest, not a warning, a promise of immediate lethal violence. I said open the gates. If you delay me another second, I will mount your head on them. Silas paled, stepped back rapidly, signaled the booth. The heavy steel barricade retracted with a mechanical groan. Dominic didn't wait for it to fully clear. Gunned the engine, the SUV surging forward. Alessia kept her hands steady on the incubator, but her mind raced. He shouldn't have questioned you, she murmured, eyes dropping back to the monitor. No, Dominic agreed, the steering wheel groaning under his grip. He shouldn't have. A pause. Silas assigned the patrol routes for the northern border tonight. The words landed like stones, cold, heavy. The same routes the rogues bypassed. Alessia's blood ran cold. They were driving straight into a viper's nest. And the snakes were already watching the door. Dominic bypassed the main entrance, steered toward an underground private garage, reserved exclusively for the king. The heavy blast door sealed shut behind them, cutting off the howl of the storm, the sudden quiet, deafening. My private wing is on the 3rd floor, Dominic said, unbuckling his seatbelt. Separate ventilation system, biometric locks. No one enters without my physical presence or a master override. He came around to her side. We set up the clinic there. Alessia nodded, moving to unstrap the incubator. Dominic didn't wait for her to struggle. Reached in, his large hands easily lifting the transport unit, meticulously careful not to jostle. Their arms brushed, his skin burning hot, radiating the unnatural heat of a wolf whose beast was fighting to resurface. Stay close to my back, Dominic ordered softly, hazel eyes locking onto hers in the dim garage light. From this moment on, trust no one but me. They moved through silent corridors, up a private elevator, down a hallway lined with reinforced doors. Every step. Alessia felt eyes, cameras, guards, wolves she couldn't see but could sense, watching, judging, wondering who she was, what she carried. Dominic's private wing was unexpected, not cold, not sterile, warm, lived in, books lining shelves, a worn leather couch, windows overlooking the forest. Human. He set the incubator down carefully on a large mahogany desk, swept the papers aside without ceremony. Whatever you need, tell me. I'll have it brought up. Alessia was already moving, assessing, planning. I need the desk cleared, completely. That bookshelf moved against the wall, the couch repositioned for a monitoring station. She turned to him. Sterile sheeting, IV stands, a crash cart if you have one, and I need this room sealed. No one in or out without my explicit permission. Dominic didn't argue, didn't question, just moved. They worked in synchronized silence. Him following her orders without hesitation, her transforming his study into a neonatal ICU. Heavy curtains drawn, lights adjusted, the scent of leather and cedar masked by sharp antiseptic. In the center, Riven rested in a top-of-the-line stationary incubator Dominic had somehow procured. State-of-the-art, network isolated, manually controlled, safe as they could make him. Alessia collapsed into the armchair they'd positioned beside the incubator. Every muscle aching, every nerve frayed, but Riven was breathing, stable, alive. Dominic stood by the window, still, silent, watching the storm. Thank you, he said it quietly, without turning. Don't, Alessia replied, just as quiet. Not until he makes it through. A beat. Then I'll thank you for the rest of my life. Something in Alessia's chest cracked, just slightly. She looked at Dominic's profile, strong, exhausted, carrying the weight of a kingdom and a family he couldn't save. Get some rest, she said. I'll take first watch. I can't. You can and you will, because when the threat comes, and it will come, I need you sharp, not running on fumes. Dominic turned, looked at her, really looked. You see things others miss. His voice, soft, genuine. That's why I brought him to you. Alicia felt warmth spread through her chest. Not the same as his earlier declaration, but real. Sleep, she whispered. I've got him. Dominic nodded, stood, walked to the couch they'd repositioned, lay down fully clothed. Within seconds, his breathing evened out, exhaustion finally claiming him. Alessia sat in the quiet, listening to Riven breathe, listening to Dominic breathe. Two lives, depending on her. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, for the first time in 5 years, Alessia felt something she'd forgotten. Purpose. Not just duty, not just oath, but purpose. She leaned back, closed her eyes, just for a moment, just to breathe. The storm would come, the vipers would strike, but tonight they were safe, and sometimes that was enough. 24 hours, that's how long Alessia had been awake. Straight through, no sleep, not even a doze, just vigilance. Every 15 minutes, check vitals, record temperatures, monitor oxygen saturation. Watch for the subtle signs that secondary drowning was setting in, because it could happen, would happen if she wasn't careful. Fluid in the lungs didn't always show up immediately. Sometimes it waited, lurked, built pressure until the fragile alveoli couldn't handle it anymore. And then you lost them. She refused to lose Riven. The makeshift NICU hummed with quiet machinery, incubator, monitor, the soft beep, beep, beep of a heartbeat that was growing stronger with each passing hour. Outside the reinforced windows, dawn had broken, gray, overcast, the storm reduced to a sullen drizzle. Inside, warmth, sterile safety, the scent of antiseptic and something else. Coffee. Alessia looked up. Dominic stood in the doorway, holding 2 mugs. He'd showered, changed into clean clothes, dark jeans, black Henley, hair still damp. He looked human, almost. You need to eat, he said it simply, crossing to set 1 mug on the side table beside her chair. And you need to sleep. I can watch the monitors for an hour. I'm fine. The lie automatic. Practiced. You're running on fumes. Dominic pulled up a second chair, sat down beside her. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him. Close enough to be distracting. Alessia. The way he said her name, low, careful, like he was testing the weight of it. You can't save him if you collapse. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she'd survived 5 years alone in the borderlands, that she knew her limits, that she didn't need anyone telling her how to do her job. But the truth, she was exhausted. Bone deep, soul-crushing, the kind of tired that made your hands shake and your vision blur. 1 hour, she relented, picked up the coffee, let the warmth seep into her palms. You watch him. Anything changes. Anything at all. You wake me. Deal. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, watching Riven sleep. The baby had good color now, pink instead of gray, his breathing steady, strong, a fighter, like his uncle. Can I ask you something? Dominic's voice cut through the quiet. Alessia tensed, slightly, because questions meant vulnerability, meant opening doors she'd kept locked for 5 years. But, go ahead. You chose exile over compromise. I know the basics, but what I don't understand is how you kept going. The question, different from what she expected. Alessia took a long sip of coffee, buying time. Because, she started, stopped, started again. Because if I'd bent, I would have kept bending until I broke. The words, raw, honest, out there. I answered to no one but my oath and myself. She looked at Riven. That's worth any price. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then, I had a mate. The shift in topic. Deliberate. Alessia stayed quiet, listening. Her name was Elena. We were mated young, arranged by our fathers, but we grew to love each other. His voice, careful, like he was picking through broken glass. She got pregnant 2 years ago. We were. Overjoyed doesn't cover it. A pause. She died in childbirth. The baby didn't survive. Alessia's heart clenched. I'm sorry. Inadequate. But what else was there to say? The healers told me, complications, unpreventable, just one of those things that happens. Dominic's jaw tightened. But I've wondered every day since, if I'd done something different, If I'd gotten her better care, if I don't, Alessia interrupted, firm, certain. Childbirth is unpredictable. Even with the best care, the best healers, sometimes, bodies just fail. She reached out, almost touched his hand, stopped. You didn't fail her. You couldn't have controlled it. Then why does it feel like I did? The question, broken. Because that's what grief does, Alessia said softly. It lies. Makes us think we had power we never possessed. She pulled her hand back. But torturing yourself won't bring her back. Or your son. Dominic looked at her. Really looked. You understand? Not a question. I do. She didn't elaborate, didn't need to. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was understanding. Two people, carrying grief, trying to figure out how to keep living despite it. My brother, Dominic said after a while. Callum, he's 2 years older than me, was supposed to be alpha. But he was gentle, thoughtful, not built for the brutality of leadership. A sad smile. So I took the crown, and he was, relieved. Got to focus on scholarship, history, the things he loved. The smile faded. 3 years ago, he was on a research trip to the northern border, studying ancient pact treaties. Dominic's hands curled into fists. He never came back. We found his escort. Dead. No sign of Callum. He looked at Riven. I thought he was dead, mourned him, moved on because that's what you do. His voice cracked. But he wasn't dead. He was being held, tortured, bred like livestock. Tears, silent, sliding down his cheeks. And I didn't know, didn't sense it, didn't save him. Alessia's chest ached. You didn't know. You couldn't have. I should have known. Dominic cut her off. I'm his brother. I should have felt it. Should have searched harder. Should have. Dominic? Alessia grabbed his hand this time. Didn't hesitate. You can't control everyone. Yeah. You can't save everyone. She squeezed. But you can choose what you do next. He looked at their joined hands, then at her. What do I do next? You save him. Simple. You bring your brother home. You protect his son. And you forgive yourself for being human. Something shifted in Dominic's expression. The crushing guilt, still there, but lighter somehow. Thank you, he whispered. Alessia nodded, pulled her hand back, tried to ignore the way her skin still tingled where they'd touched. Get some sleep, Dominic said, standing, moving to the monitoring station. I've got him. Alessia wanted to protest, but her body, already surrendering, she curled up in the armchair, tucked her legs beneath her, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 24 hours, let herself rest. The alarm woke her, shrill, piercing, wrong. Alessia was on her feet before her brain caught up. Dominic already at the incubator, hands hovering over the control panel. What's happening? She pushed past him, looked at the readout. Temperature, dropping, 98.6, 96, 94.5, 92. No. It's the thermal system. She slammed the manual override. Nothing. The screen glitched, flashed erratic numbers, went black. A blast of icy air suddenly poured from the unit's vents, blowing directly onto Riven, the baby's skin already paling. It's not a malfunction, Alicia realized. Blood running cold. She ripped the incubator lid open, scooped Riven into her arms, wrapped him in the thermal blanket she kept ready. It's been hacked. Someone reversed the thermal coils. She pressed the baby against her chest, using her body heat. Someone just tried to freeze him to death. Dominic's eyes flared gold. The growl that ripped from his chest, inhuman. The climate control is tied to the estate mainframe, Alessia continued, rocking Riven, rubbing warmth into his tiny back. Only a high-level override could bypass your firewall. Someone with clearance. Dominic's voice. Lethal. Lock the door, he ordered, already moving, his body beginning to tremble. The rage threatening to force his shift. Bolt it, iron deadbolt, do not open for anyone. Where are you going? Server room. To find who did this. Dominic, wait. Too late. The heavy door slammed. Biometric lock engaged. Alessia was alone. She backed away from the door, moved to the furthest corner, sat on the floor, pulled her knees up to shield Riven. The baby whimpered, weak, shocky. "It's okay," she whispered frantically. "I've got you. You're safe. I've got you." But did she? Someone had just tried to kill him. From inside the estate, from inside Dominic's inner circle. The room, suddenly feeling less like a sanctuary, more like a trap. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The silence, deafening. Alessia's eyes darted around, cataloging. Heavy desk, glass cabinets, brass lamp, medical cart. If someone came, what could she use as a weapon? Scalpel. Too small. Scissors, maybe. The lamp, heavy enough to do damage. She was mentally planning defensive positions when she heard it. The soft electronic trill of the biometric lock. Her heart stopped. Dominic said only he could open that door, but someone had bypassed the firewall if they had master override access. The door swung open, slowly. A figure stepped into the dim light, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in tactical gear. Silas, the guard from the gate, no weapon visible, but his hands shaking, his eyes desperate. "Alessia," his voice, rough, pleading. "I need you to hand over the boy." She didn't move, didn't speak, just held Riven tighter. "Please." Silas took a step forward. "This doesn't have to be difficult. You're an exile. This isn't your fight. You sold out your king." Alessia said it flatly. "You gave the rogues the patrol routes. You're the traitor. I'm a father." Silas's voice cracked. "My daughter, Bryn. She's 8 years old and she's dying." Alessia's breath caught. Which touched sickness. Started 6 months ago. Fever. Seizures. The healers can't fix it. Can't even slow it down. Tears streaming down his face. "Counselor Dane, she came to me. Said the northern witches could cure Bryn. If I helped them." He took another step. "All I had to do, give them access to patrol schedules. Look the other way when the carriage was attacked." His hands curling into fists and hand over the veil pup. "They lied to you," Alicia said, voice steady despite the terror clawing up her throat. "The witches won't cure your daughter. They want to breed Riven. Use his blood for rituals." "You don't know that." "I do." She stood slowly, Riven still clutched to her chest. "They did the same thing to his father. Callum, 3 years of captivity, torture, forced breeding." She met Silas's eyes. "If you give them this baby, your daughter dies anyway, because they have no intention of keeping their promise." Silas's face crumpling. "But what if you're wrong? What if there's a chance?" "There isn't. Firm, certain. But I can cure her." Silence. Silas stared at her. "What?" "I'm a healer, witch-touch sickness. I've treated it before. Close enough to the truth. Let me examine your daughter. I'll find a cure, without trading an innocent child." You tell him disbelief, hope, warring on his face. "Why would you help me? I just tried to, Because that's what healers do. Simple. We save lives, all lives." Silas's hands dropped to his sides, the fight draining out of him. But then he lunged, desperation overriding reason, because his daughter was dying, and desperate fathers did desperate things. Alessia moved, not away, inside his guard, years of self-defense training, from living alone at the border, from treating rogues who sometimes turned violent. She knew how bodies worked, how to break them. Riven secured against her chest with one arm. Her other hand grabbed the nearest object from the medical cart, surgical steel tray, swung it, edge first, into Silas's temple. The impact, solid, precise. Silas dropped, not dead, unconscious. Alessia, breathing hard, grabbed IV tubing from the cart, zip-tied his wrists, then collapsed against the wall, still holding Riven. The baby, crying now, fully awake, but alive, safe. Alessia started to shake, adrenaline crash, delayed terror. She'd just knocked out a royal guard. What if Dominic didn't believe her? What if the door burst open? Dominic, human form, but barely, eyes still gold, claws half extended. He took in the scene. Silas, unconscious, tied up. Alessia, on the floor, holding Riven. Blood on the surgical tray beside her. He came for Riven, Alessia said, voice shaking now. I had to. I know. Dominic crossed to her, knelt down. I know. He didn't touch her, just stayed close, solid, real, anchoring. You're safe now. They moved Silas to a chair, still unconscious, still restrained. Alessia checked Riven, the cold exposure, brief enough not to cause lasting damage. Temperature, climbing back to normal. She placed him back in the incubator, the old-fashioned manually controlled backup unit Dominic had procured. No network, no hacking, safe. Silas groaned, started to wake. Dominic stood over him, radiating menace. Talk. One word. Command. Silas blinked, focused, saw Dominic, paled. Alpha, my daughter. The healer made you an offer. Dominic cut him off. Cure your daughter in exchange for information. He leaned down. That offer still stands, if you tell us everything. Silas looked at Alessia. She nodded. I keep my word. Bring Bryn here. I'll examine her. Silas broke. Counselor Dane, he started. She approached me 8 months ago, said she had connections, ways to cure Bryn. He looked at his hands. I was desperate, would have done anything. What did she want in return? Dominic's voice, cold. Information, patrol schedules, guard rotations, the weaknesses in the estate security. Silas swallowed. Then she wanted me to sabotage the incubator, make it look like equipment failure. Who else is working with her? The royal physician, 2 other counselors, and at least 4 guards I know of. He met Dominic's eyes. It's bigger than I thought. She's been planning this for years. Planning what exactly? Alessia asked. A coup, Silas said flatly. She wants you dead or discredited, wants to install her nephew as puppet king. A pause, but first she needs veil blood for a ritual. What kind of ritual? Immortality. The word hung in the air. She's been working with the northern witches, trading information, resources, pack secrets. Silas looked sick. In exchange, they're teaching her blood magic, turning her into one of them. Dominic's hands curled into fists. And the ritual requires royal blood living from the direct line. Silas looked at Riven. That pup, he's the key. Pure veil blood, newborn, perfect for harvest. Alessia felt cold fury wash over her. She'll have to go through me first. That's the plan, Silas said quietly. Kill you, take the pup, complete the ritual. Dominic stood, paced, the beast right beneath his skin. When boss, soon, Dane's getting impatient. The longer the pup lives, the harder it gets to a sharp electronic beep, the comm system crackling to life. A voice, female, cold, cultured. Alpha Dominic, this is Counselor Dane. Everyone froze. I believe we need to have a conversation about the child you're harboring. Dominic's eyes flashed gold. He moved to the comm panel. Speak. I have a proposition, a trade, if you will. Silence, then. We have your brother, Callum, alive, relatively unharmed. Alessia's breath caught. Dominic's face went pale. Return the pup to us. We return Callum to you. Simple, clean. Everyone gets what they want. A pause. You have 24 hours to decide. The comm went dead. Dominic stood frozen. Alessia moved to him. It's a trap, she said softly. I know. His voice hollow. They'll take both. I know. He looked at her. But what if it's real? What if I can get him back? The pain in his eyes. Devastating. We can't trade Riven, Alessia said firmly, but we can save them both. How? I don't know yet, she admitted, but we have 24 hours. We use them. A pause. First, I keep my promise to Silas. 2 hours later, Bryn arrived, carried by a loyal guard Dominic trusted. She was tiny, 8 years old but looked 6, skin pale, lips faintly blue, fever burning. Alessia's heart broke. Because this was what Silas had been fighting for. Not power, not greed, just love. She examined Bryn, listened to crackling lungs, checked dilated pupils, drew blood, and realized this wasn't just sickness. This was a blood curse. Someone had hexed this child deliberately to control Silas. It's a curse, Alessia said. Silas's head snapped up. Someone hexed her to manipulate you. She met his eyes, and I can break it. It took 6 hours, herbal infusions, purification rituals, drawing out the tainted magic with her own healer energy. Because Alessia's gift wasn't just medical knowledge, it was life magic, the opposite of death magic. She pressed her palms against Bryn's chest, felt the dark tangle of hex work, and she pulled, with intention, with oath, with life force. The curse fought, but Alessia held on, because this child deserved to live. The curse snapped, dissolved. Bryn gasped, eyes flying open, clear, bright. Daddy Silas broke, sobbed, "You're okay, you're okay." Alessia stumbled back, exhausted but satisfied. Dominic steadied her. "You did it," his voice awed. "Told you." Weak smile. "It's what we do." They moved to the vault. Inner sanctum, Faraday cage, manual locks, safe. Silas sat across from them. Bryn, sleeping peacefully, color returned. "Counselor Dane," Silas started. "The royal physician is hers. 2 counselors, 4 guards." He met Dominic's eyes. "But the witch camp, that's where they're holding Callum." "Location at northern border, old ritual grounds." Silas swallowed. 30 witches, maybe more, plus Dane's forces. Dominic paced. "We can't assault it, not without alerting the traitors." "So we infiltrate," Alicia said. They both looked at her. Silas goes in, pretends loyalty, says he secured the pup. She pointed to Riven. "We use a decoy, wrapped bundle, right weight. By the time they realize, we'll have Callum." Dominic finished. He looked at Silas. "You'd do this after everything." "You saved my daughter," Silas said simply. "I owe you everything." They spent hours planning. Tracker, subdermal, for Silas. Decoy bundle, weighted perfectly. Extraction team, 5 wolves, trusted absolutely. Dawn, 6 hours away. Alessia stayed with Riven. Dominic geared up. When he returned, tactical gear, black, reinforced. He looked dangerous. "I don't want to lose him," Alessia admitted. "We won't." "You can't promise that." "No." He knelt beside her. "But I can promise I'll fight like hell." He looked at Riven. "He's family. You've become important to me." Alessia's breath caught. "Dominic, I know. Wrong time. I just needed you to know." He stood. In case he didn't come back. Alessia stood too, grabbed his hand. "You come back." Fiercely. "You bring Callum home, and you come back." "I will. Promise." "I promise." He pulled her close. Forehead press, his warmth, his certainty, steadying her. 3 hours, he whispered. "Then we end this." Silas left first, alone, walking into darkness with a tracker and hope. Bryn stayed in the vault with Alessia, safe, protected, healing. The little girl, attached to Alessia, asking questions about healing, about her daddy. Alessia lied kindly, said yes, everything would be fine. Because what else do you tell a child? 2 hours passed, the tracker transmitted. Silas, moving north toward the border. Dominic geared up his team, 5 wolves, battle-hardened, ready. "You stay here," he told Alessia. "Lock down, don't open for anyone but me." "I know. If things go wrong, they won't." She cut him off, refused the alternative. Dominic looked at her, wanted to say something, didn't, just nodded and left. The vault door, sealing, leaving Alessia, Bryn, Riven, alone, waiting. The tracker went dark at hour 4. Alessia stared at the monitor, moving steadily, then nothing, either discovered or underground, beyond signal. She chose to believe the second. Time crawled. Hour 5, 6. Dawn broke. Still, nothing. Then, calm crackle. Dominic, static. We're in position. His voice, low, controlled. Slough's found Callum. Witch camp, 30 hostiles. Can you extract? Working on it. More static. Then, a woman's voice. Cold, cultured. Counselor Dane. Alpha Dominic, so good of you to join us. Alessia's blood ran cold. I assume you've brought the pup. Silence. Then Dominic. I brought something better. Me. How noble. Dane's voice, mocking. But the ritual requires innocence, purity. Your blood is tainted. A pause. The pup's blood is perfect. Then you're out of luck, Dominic said, because he's not here. Silence. Then, you're bluffing. Search the perimeter. Minutes tick by. Then Dane's voice, sharp with fury. Where is he? Safe. Then your brother dies. No, a new voice, Alessia. She'd activated the comm, broadcast herself. Dominic was going to kill her. But this was the only way. I have a better offer, she said. Who is this? Dane demanded. Alessia Core, the healer who saved the pup. Silence. The exile. Interesting. You want Vale blood, but you need it alive. Cooperative. Alessia kept her voice calm. I propose a trade. Me. For Callum and Dominic both. Alessia, no. Dominic's voice, furious. She ignored him. I'm a healer. Rare, valuable, life magic in my blood. She paused. Imagine what you could learn. She could hear Dane, considering. But you let them all go. Callum, Dominic, everyone. And the pup stays where he is, untouched. More silence. Done. You have my word. Your word means nothing, Alessia said flatly. But I don't have a choice. I'm coming out. Alone. Unarmed. Alessia, don't. Dominic's voice. Desperate. She cut the comm. Looked at Bryn. If I don't come back, you take care of Riven. The little girl nodded, terrified, but brave. Alessia grabbed a medical bag, not weapons, supplies, because she was a healer, and she'd face this the only way she knew, with compassion. She unlocked the vault, stepped out, and walked toward dawn, toward the witch camp, toward whatever came. The camp was smaller than expected, ringed by ancient trees, warped by dark magic. In the center, a clearing, bonfires, ritual circles, and Callum, chained to a post, thin, scarred, hollow-eyed, but alive. Beside him, Dominic, on his knees, surrounded, not as wolves, Danes, standing center, Counselor Dane, 60-something, white hair, sharp features, eyes, burning with ambition. The healer, Dane smiled, courageous or foolish. Let them go, Alessia said. We had a deal. I've reconsidered. Of course. You see, Dane paced, theatrical. I've spent years preparing, trading with witches, learning their craft. She gestured to the ritual circle. And I'm so close. I just need the right ingredients. Her eyes fixed on Alessia. Alpha blood, healer blood, and the pup. You won't get him. Oh, I will, because you're going to tell me. Never. Dane sighed, snapped fingers. One of her wolves grabbed Callum, knife to throat. Tell me, or he dies. Alessia's heart pounded. But she looked at Callum, really looked, saw the scholar, the gentle soul, and in his eyes, a message. Don't trade Riven. Don't let her win. No, Alessia said, voice steady. Kill him. I won't help you murder a child. Dane's face twisted with rage. Then you're useless. She raised her hand. Dark magic. Crackling. Alessia stepped forward, opened her medical bag, pulled out a vial. Wait, her voice calm. Before you kill me, let me show you something. Dane paused, curious. What? Bryn, Silas's daughter, you cursed her. Alessia held up the vial. I broke your curse with life magic. It was just water. But Dane didn't know. Imagine if you could harness that. Not just dark magic, but balance. She took another step. Life and death True immortality, not undead existence. Dane Bahari lowered her hand slightly. You're offering to teach me I'm offering a better way. Alessia's voice, soft, genuine. Death magic. It's hollow. You'll live forever, but empty. She held out her hand. But life magic. You could transcend. It was mostly a lie, but also a test. Dane stared, then laughed. Cold. Brittle. You think I care about balance? She stepped closer. I want power. Absolute. Eternal. She raised her hand again. And I'll take it. From your still beating heart. Death magic. Surging. Aimed at Alessia. And Alessia closed her eyes. Reached deep. To her oath. To every life saved. To pure, undiluted intention. And she let it out. Life magic. Bright. Warm. Overwhelming. It collided with Dane's spell. Midair. Light against dark. Balanced. Then, Dane's magic recoiled, because death magic requires hatred, emptiness. Alessia's magic was fueled by compassion. The recoil hit Dane, her own spell reflected. She screamed, the dark magic consuming her, destroying. Dane collapsed, king rapidly, skin withering within seconds. Dust, ash, nothing, the clearing. Went silent. Then chaos. Dane's wolves scattered. Dominic's team rushed forward, cut Callum's chains, grabbed Alessia, who was swaying. Magic drain. Hitting. I've got you. Dominic, catching her, she looked up. Callum, alive, safe, you insane, brilliant woman. He held her tighter. You could have died. But I didn't. Weak smile. Life magic beats death. Every time. A voice, rough, broken, hopeful. Dominic Callum, standing, supported by wolves, but standing, Dominic turned, and for the first time, Alessia saw him break completely. He crossed to his brother, pulled him into crushing embrace, sobbed. I'm sorry, I should have found you. You came, Callum whispered, voice wrecked, but certain. That's all that matters. They held each other, two brothers, reunited. After 3 years of hell, Alessia watched, felt tears sliding down her cheeks, because this was why she fought, for families put back together, for life, preserved, the journey back. Quiet, Callum, weak, carried. Alessia, exhausted, but keeping pace, checking vitals, monitoring. He'd need months of care, but he'd survive. Back at the estate, Silas waited, with Bryn and Riven, when he saw them, dropped to his knees. Alphateo, you helped save my brother. Dominic cut him off. Forgiven, but probation for life. Silas nodded, grateful. Bryn ran to Alessia, threw arms around her. You came back. I promised. Alessia held her, and Riven, still, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the war fought for him. Alessia picked him up. Safe, she whispered. You're safe now. Dominic appeared beside her. We all are. He looked at his brother, at Riven, at Alessia. Thanks to you. She shook her head. Thanks to all of us. 3 months passed. The estate transformed. New guards, vetted personally, new council, free of corruption, new rules about transparency, about doing better. Callum was healing, slowly, steadily, bonded with Riven, spent hours holding his son, telling stories about Iris, making sure Riven would know how loved he was. Silas had proven himself, loyal, dedicated, he and Bryn, part of the family now. Bryn wanted to be a healer, followed Alicia everywhere, a bright spark. Alessia kept her clinic, traveled back and forth, treating anyone who needed her. But she also stayed. More and more, training healers, building a medical wing, creating something lasting. And Dominic, he'd asked her not to be queen, but to be his partner, equal, respected, free. she'd said, eventually. Yes, after long conversations, after promises kept, after learning to trust again. Now they sat in the garden, watching Riven, healthy, laughing, playing with Bryn, sun, warm on their faces. I never thought I'd have this, Dominic said quietly. What peace, family, you. Alessia smiled, leaned into him. Me neither. Comfortable silence. Then, marry me. Dominic blurted. Alessia blinked. What? I'm not asking you to be queen or change anything. He turned to face her. I'm asking if you'll build this life with me as partners. He took her hand. No cage, no rules, just us. Alessia looked at him. At this man who'd kicked him out her door, who'd trusted her, who'd learned to let her be free. And she knew. Yes. Simple. Certain. Yes. Dominic pulled her close, kissed her, soft, sweet, full of promise. In the background, Riven laughed, Bryn cheered, and somewhere, Alicia thought, Iris was smiling. They married quietly. Small ceremony, just family. Callum performed it. Vows, simple, honest. I will stand beside you, not behind, beside. I will never cage you, never ask you to be less. Sealed with a kiss, wolves howled in celebration. Years passed. The border clinic expanded, full medical center, staffed by healers Alessia trained, treating wolves, all packs, all statuses. Alicia still ran it, living both lives, free and loved. Dominic supported everything, trusted completely. Callum took over administration, letting Dominic focus on protection, family, and Riven. 5 years old now, bright, curious, kind. He didn't remember the night he almost died, but he knew he'd been saved by the healer, his aunt, who'd taught him every life matters. He wanted to be a healer too, just like Alessia, just like Bryn, and sometimes, on quiet nights, Alessia would sit with him, tell stories about his mother, about how love brought him back. Do you think Mama can see me? Riven asked once. I know she can, Alessia said, and she's so proud. I wish I could have met her. Me too. Alessia held him close. But she lives on, in you, in your kindness. Riven thought, then, will you tell me more about her? Every day. Alessia promised, for as long as you want. Forever, forever, because that's what family did. They remembered, honored, loved. Across time and distance, the healer's promise to preserve life in all forms had saved them, all of them, and it would carry them forward into a future built on compassion, forgiveness, the unwavering belief that every life, no matter how small, no matter how broken, mattered and was worth fighting for always.